Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, your extremely sleep deprived and overly caffeinated host, Tony Cañas, pitching the third out of what I believe today is a quadruple header on 3 hours of sleep. But luckily, all the other ones have been good, and this one is going to be good. Very special episode today. I have with me Stacey Saunders.
Hello, everyone.
Stacey Saunders, leadership strategist and business coach at Saunders Consulting LLC. Perfect. Stacey, thank you for joining me today. Sorry, I was literally going down your LinkedIn finding your exact job title. Brain slow today.
Love it.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. Even in your current state, I'm coming off of, Pride weekend, so maybe we're at the same.
We're
We're
both
this.
exactly. Yes, for the listeners, before we start recording, we chatted for 23 minutes, which is 3 times as much as the normal pre-recording. But we are both sleep deprived, but in lifted spirits from the weekend.
Very much nourished
Perfect.
and
Perfect.
like friendships, just connections, and just general merriment, right? Like, how can you go wrong, right? There's so much to
Ex-
be like, so much joy to be had in the world, right?
exact same. Yeah. So we're recording on June 30th, Monday, June 30th. Uh, and yeah, for Stacey, it was Pride that refilled your bucket this weekend, and for me, it was my second round at Magic School. This time for summer camp, in Las Vegas. So Stacey, normally we break the ice over the weather. This case really not needed. I'm assuming you cooked in Chicago just like I cooked in Atlanta and in New York last week, and then in Las Vegas.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Because that was horrible, horrific.
It's hot outside, stay hydrated, like do what you can, be
Uh,
inside as much as possible.
yes, for real. All right. So the we always give the guest a chance to give the elevator pitch. What is Saunders Consulting?
Oh my God. Uh thank you for asking me like what I do for a living. So I am a leadership and development coach. I'm also a facilitator, moderator. I am coming into organizations, like working with organizations and their teams, helping them, you know, lead with more clarity, hone their like habits so that they are communicating on purpose and being able to create those systems that support them as humans, but also support their bottom line. Because again, it's like, well, it's not a numbers game. It's at the end of the day, how are humans working and playing well in the sandbox together? And typically, when I come in, they may not be playing so well in that sandbox, or they want to learn some new skills, right? And how do we move forward in, in environments when all of the voices need to be heard, but you also need to get stuff done.
Perfect. That okay. I love that. All the voices need to be heard. You also need to get stuff done. By the way, those environments, every business, every organization, period. If you're running your company or your organization of whatever type, in a way where you care about everybody's voices get heard, you are going to be in deep trouble when it
Yes,
comes to recruiting, retaining, and eventually that I can guarantee recruiting because that's my world.
100%. Yeah,
If, if,
100%.
the word will get out and
Yes.
you will be in deep trouble in recruiting and retaining, especially the younger generations, which is my
which
wheelhouse.
is
Uh,
which is huge. And to what you're speaking of, so that's where so diversity is one of the equations, right? The other equation is the inclusivity of those voices, right? So again, it's like yes, every voice needs to be heard, but it's kind of like how are we modulating that? How are we, getting our things done and taking that into consideration to be like, it's not just my way or like the highway, which is what I oftentimes heard like growing up. I'm not sure about you, but it's kind of like do what I say, not as I do. But it's like, no, how are we shifting our mindsets around what work even looks like. Like, how do we get these projects done? Is it, oh, heads down, do what you're told? Or is it to be like, is there a different way, right? Like, how can we be, you know, creating more ease in how we're getting things done. And that's oftentimes where I'm starting from when I'm coming into a space, like, because they have been beating their heads up against a wall to just be like, oh, we're trying to like these rigid, like forced upon us, like ways of doing things that are no longer serving people, but they need to have that space to be able to be like, oh, here's a new way. How do we introduce it so that everyone feels that this is going to work for us down the line?
Fantastic. And you've been doing this work in your own consulting firm for now 10 years.
Yes.
That's amazing. Like insurance nerds turned 10 years last year.
Yes,
Well,
congratulations.
thank
I
you.
was there for your party. I was there for
It
your
was
party.
it was awesome, beyond awesome. But to be clear, insurance nerds had no full-time employees until Nick Tamparelli became a full-timer last year.
Yes.
So like we all had day jobs. We
Yes.
just we just kept the thing going, and I will keep it going until we die, basically, and hopefully afterwards. But actually feeding yourself from it 10 years is impressive, right? I am self-employed now myself also for the last 3, and I'm impressed with myself
Congratulations.
for 3, right?
Yes.
All right. So
And it's well, in what for both of us, right? It's a slow process. And even with that, there's no one way to be a small business owner or to be self-employed or to do work, right? It's kind of like my path was my path. And even at 10 years, at different times, I have questioned that path to be like, oh, yes, keep your day job. Like if you can't like just those things that make certain things easier, right? Like having cash flow when cash flow can be not so flowing some months, right? Like how to be able to live through that. Like, and sometimes it's more of a marathon, not a sprint, or to be like, sometimes you are sprinting and then you're like, oh, wait, I can slow my pace back down, right? But at many times, like there's just a lot of different ways to do things. And again, having that, at least for me, and I'm sure you have found this as well, like just being more open to all the ways that we can do business, right? Like, how do we support ourselves? How do we do the things that we love? How do we incorporate, our friends and partners and, whatever, like relationships, all the relationships that we have to be able to do the things that we want to do out in the world, right? Which at the end of the day, for me, is I want to be a better human. So I am coaching people to be better humans, and whether that's like by themselves, like, or if it's like with their teammates, right? What does that look like?
perfect. Okay, so according to our website,
Okay.
the 3 main services:
Yes.
coaching, facilitating, and speaking. Okay,
Yes.
so coaching, specialized and relatable coaching and consulting for everyday situations and business operations. What does that coaching look like, and who do you tend to coach? Yeah, tell us. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. So coaching, I'm working with individuals. It can be one to one. It can be one to many. So like in terms of teams, like really coming in and looking at, you know, if I'm coming in at the beginning, which is ideal, right? Like you're forming your team, you have your company like set up, you now have like 3 employees. Let's get those, SOPs, those standard operating procedures in place. Let's look at your mission. Let's look at your values. Let's look at how are those things playing out in your daily life? Like, how would I, as a client, know that you're living into your mission or values? How do I, as a employee, like know that we're living into our mission, vision, and values? How do I know? Like again, how are you putting this out into the world? Like, what does this look like? How would I know this at various levels, right? If we're looking at this as a team perspective. So so again, I know we haven't gotten to the speaking or the facilitating just yet, but it all, kind of all ties together. So oftentimes if I'm, coming into a teaming environment, it may be that we do a workshop and then I'll have some coaching, like after that. Like I'll come in for like a half day or a full day and we'll, do some stuff, do some teaming and exercises and sort of inclusion, just kind of breaking things down and to be like, well, what does this look like? Well, how does this play out? Or like they may have had some, things go wrong that they're specifically looking for help with to where then we can like start to break those down. But having that additional person in the room or like objective or like person in the room to be like, I'm not a part of that environment to be able to look at the environment and say like, hey, here's where you can be doing things better. So that's oftentimes where facilitating comes in, or even, speaking again, in terms of the workshops. But it's just, again, it all flows together to be like, okay, how is the coaching supporting what you're doing? And certainly I will highlight, what is working well. But again, certainly those things that are no longer serving the organization, whether it's just your processes aren't getting done on time, people aren't communicating effectively. And sometimes that can just look like, oh, I'm not advocating for myself in this moment. Like you're asking me to do something, but in this particular moment, I don't have either the knowledge or the capacity or even the skills to do it, right? So how do we so to work faster sometimes is not necessarily the best because it's like, oh, like in getting this done, I may need some additional time, or I don't have the thing prior to me getting the next step done in place, right? So it's kind of like, oh, how do we communicate that, right? So it's not just like, I don't want to do this. It's more of like, in this particular moment, I don't have all the tool or all the things that I need. So whether they're tools or skills to get this project done.
Perfect, perfect. Um, yeah. So the facilitation piece,
Yes.
you talked a little bit about it. Okay, customized workshops on innovation, prioritization, and project management. Fantastic. Those three super, super, super important topics. By the way, I like how you define like your core topics that you facilitate on.
Yeah.
It's very easy as an independent consultant to, I'm a trainer, I'll train on anything, right? Um,
Will not train on anything. I don't know a lot about everything. It's like I know enough just to get myself into trouble, but it's like in terms of, deciding to go out on my own as a coach, it was something that I coming to that decision like was more of learning throughout my previous work experience, so pretty much since, you know, the 90s, right? Like just working in various different capacities, to be like, I never held the role of coach or teacher or facilitator. However, in many of the roles that I had or the duties that I found myself enjoying or tasks that
uh-huh.
I found myself enjoying were those where I was mentoring, where I was training, where I was coaching, where I was facilitating in those environments. So it's kind of like, well, wanna I do this more proactively than in some ways like reactively, right? Like just kind of like, oh, well, my job description is project manager, but then it's like, oh, wait, what am I doing within that role that I actually enjoy doing? So like the onboarding or creating the training programs or creating the curriculum or, again, all the things that I get to do now, like naturally, to where it's just like, oh, what's another word for that? Like, oh, that's coaching, right? Like here's how I am learning to be in the environment. And oftentimes I will joke with my clients to be like, I'm learning from y'all. So I'm an only child. So like I'm still learning how I work and play well with like others. So thank you, right? Like thank you all of my clients to where you give me that opportunity each day to be able to hone like my skills even better from like, being educated, in this capacity as well.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. Speaking talks on mindset, leadership, value alignment, and boundary setting to help you get more of the stuff right. And I specifically skipped the word style. Okay. So stylized talk on
Yeah.
mindset leadership. Okay, so first of all, yeah, tell us about the different sessions that you do, and then help me understand stylized.
Yeah, well, stylize is just another word, maybe a fancier word than saying customize. So again, it's like, leadership at the end of the day is what I'm leadership and leadership skills is like what I'm helping people
Mm-hmm.
with, right? When I come into a company. But then it's like, oh, like my specific specialty is really looking at, oh, wait, again, how are you working and playing well? Like sort of the time management of it all. So again, whether it's the planning, whether it's the sequencing, whether it's all the other like the rest, the burnout, like just all the things that go into how are we using our time effectively, right? So that we get the projects done, like, deadlines. Are we holding them? Are we not holding them? When I say I'm going to do X and I'm doing Y, well, that doesn't line up to, what is needed in this moment, right? So again, all of those different voices, right? So again, when we talk about, yes, the diversity of it all, the inclusion of it all, to be like, well, it may not be all included in this particular moment, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, great, let's try this right now. So I'm big on experimentation to be like, okay, great, let's play with some things. Like, let's play with this for like a week or so. Let's see how it goes, and then we'll try something else. In agile coaching, I think that's called a sprint. So again, like we're going to try this for a week, and then if run as fast as we can, and then break some stuff, and then figure it out, right? But it's like, oh, this is how we can re-educate ourselves to move away from to be like, oh, well, it has to be done like this way. Because I certainly know, like working through the 90s as a Gen Xer, did not really appreciate that. And, certainly didn't feel seen or heard because it's like, oh, other voices at play were just like, you just need to get this done. Like your voice may be heard at some point, maybe not, most likely more in that latter category. But at the same time, that's neither here nor there. But certainly in the spaces that I'm coming to, uh, you know, just being open, how can I truly see what they are needing in terms of my client? Like it's not about me in that moment. Like what are they needing in this moment? And sometimes it is just like, okay, let's take a step back, or to be like, let's pause for a minute. Like let's, breathe, like literally take like a really deep breath and figure out like what is happening. And then to be like, okay, let's put the car back together, right? Like, so I'm using a lot of different analogies here, but uh,
Uh,
it's just, whatever lands, right? But it's also to be like, all right, like, how do we take that pause, look at this from a different angle, and then be able to like move forward coming in?
Perfect. 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 All right. I'm looking at the message that you sent me a few days ago.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. That includes your bio. Just try to make sure that we don't miss anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. This actually kind of want to read this. Okay. So we should have read it at the beginning. Maybe I'll edit it. I won't edit it.
You
Sometimes I say maybe, and then I never edit it.
you
Okay.
never
So
edit.
for the listeners, this should have been at the beginning. Stacey's bio, which I have not practiced reading, but we'll see how my voice work is going.
That's
Uh, New York, New York, bodega. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Stacey Saunders. Stacey Saunders is a leadership and development strategist and founder of Saunders Consulting. With 20 plus years of experience across sectors, she helps high achieving professionals stop overfunctioning and leading with clarity, ease, and sustainable impact. Her work blends unapologetic boundaries, burnout proof systems, and strategic insights to move leaders from busyness to business. A trusted voice in tech, insurance, and mission-driven circles, Stacey brings a bold, human-first lens to every room. Please welcome Stacey Saunders. That wasn't bad. That was not bad. I went a little fast, and I had never read it before, and it did remind me of. And when I say let's see how my voice work is doing, what I mean is public speaking and magic, not like voiceover. All right. But I'm curious how that turned out. With no practice, incredible. Okay.
It's
So this
amazing.
did remind me the busyness to business. So yes, tell me about busyness to business.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm not sure when I coined that phrase specifically, but people who are familiar with my newsletter, I am definitely against grind culture, which sadly has really become what is considered the norm in our society, to where that, just over overdoing everything. Like it's like you always have to be going, always have to be doing something. And it's like even when you're resting, it's like, well, what are you doing when you're resting? Or if you say like, oh, I'm, vegging out, or like I'm doing this, like it's like literally like, oh, I'm going on vacation. Like, well, what are you going to be doing? It's like vacationing, like whatever the vacation, like I'm going to be sitting by a pool, like drinking a margarita, maybe. I don't know. But at the same time, it's like, oh, we have to like always be scheduled, always be like moving, and that doesn't serve anyone. So for the busyness in the business setting, it's that like, oh, I have to be at my computer here. I have to get my, email down to like zero. I have to like, it's all that I have to, that cha-cha in your brain to just be like, oh, I gotta be moving. I gotta be doing something. I gotta be reading. I gotta be, active. And just really slowing down that cha-cha in your brain to then just say like, okay, the business side of this, what is really important to me, what really matters at the end of the day for me to get done, right? Because again, we all have, meetings, we have you know whether it's meetings, whether it's scheduled like actual like work that we have to like complete like deadline wise to get done. But at the same time, how do we go back to that planning or sequencing, or to say like, is this a meeting that I need to attend? Can I send someone else if I have a teammate, right? Or can I reschedule this? Or like, does it need to be, even to ask the question like, does this need to be an hour? Does it need to be a 30-minute meeting? Does it need to be like a 10-minute meeting? Or like to just kind of re-observe, right? Going back to that, like, let's just look at how we can do this differently, right? Like I don't need to pack my schedule unless it truly needs to be packed that way, right? Like some, and we've all gotten to a space to where, and I found myself saying this at times as well, to be like, well, I do better under stress. It's like actually we don't, but we've trained our brains to think that we do. And then for some of us, like we may end up with um illness, or other things to where you get sick, or your body like literally tells you, yeah, no, like you need to rest, right? Like we get taken out in many different capacities. And you and I right now know someone who is, up against it as well, to where in that like stress category, to be like, no, your body is going to tell you you can't do this anymore, right? And so how to retrain ourselves before we get to like that space. So if it is you have a team, to be like, can I delegate this to someone? Is this a task that I specifically, Stacey Saunders or Tony, again, as like need to like do in this moment? Can this be done by someone else? And I know that, part of the work that I'm doing now with different generations in the workforce, the generation, above me, a lot of the boomers oftentimes seem to be tied to the work, to be like, I have to do it. I have to
Let,
do it.
let's pause there for a second since
Sure.
generations always spike up my ears, right? Um, yes. And as you were saying it, I was thinking of it as a cultural thing, and I think it's both. So I am a foreigner to this land. I
Yes.
grew up in Costa Rica. I have now been in the States for 23 years, and I only
Okay.
lived in Costa Rica for 19.
Okay.
And so I've been here for more than half my life. From
Yes.
those 19 years, I'm now a dual citizen. Uh, those 19 years in Costa Rica, I went to the American school. So I'm culturally very American
Yes.
compared to your average Latino. Okay. So for me, it is weird, even as a very American foreigner, And on the generational side, as a millennial, it is very weird to me how American culture, and in this case, American culture, when you said the generational thing, I realized that it's not American culture. It's very much boomer culture, which has dominated American culture in business, especially in business and politics, especially for freaking like decades and decades and decades, because of
Yes.
how many people, because of how large of a generation they are,
Yes.
uh, and other factors. But basically, um, there is an obsession in American slash boomer culture in business with being busy,
Mhm.
right? And especially in a larger company, it doesn't matter if that busy is productive. Now,
Mhm.
if you are an army of one, like you are,
Mhm.
or an army of 2.2, like my little recruiting operation, or 1.2 or 1.1 like Nick Lamparelli's insurance nerd, of which I own a third and I run the podcast and I'm a founder,
Right.
then busy it doesn't work, right? And
Does
we,
not
we
work.
we we figured out very quickly when you were very busy and didn't make any money, right?
Right.
Right. But if you work for a corporation, especially a large one, where it might happen in medium ones and smaller ones,
Yeah.
especially in the office, in the old pre-remote environment, busy protects you, right? Busy makes it less likely, or it feels like it's less likely you'll get downsized, right? There's just an obsession with busy. There's an obsession with long hours,
Yes.
right? Americans get we are the best economy in the world, yes, and we get less vacation than other developed countries compared to Europe. A lot less vacation. Are we more productive because of that? No, it doesn't appear that we are. It very much appears that the more you dig into it, having a lot less vacation than Europeans just makes us more burnt out and less effective, less productive in the hours that we do work, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so yes, anything that you can do to help the company, the people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, move from busy to real productivity
Yeah.
is a giant win. And by the way, listeners, your millennials and your Gen Z employees do not believe in busy. They believe in productive. Gen Z especially. Uh, so stop aiming for busy. Aim for
Yeah. Well,
productive.
and what you're saying, because again, this isn't to demonize any generation, right? Because I'm obviously as a Gen X are going to be like, we're the best. But and I will, I'll take the smoke for that one any day and probably get a little spicy about it. But it's again, how are we understanding the different way that we are speaking, right? So in terms of like language or computers like speaking to one another. And oftentimes what I find, which is hilarious to me, just as a human, is that let's say boomers and millennials, and sometimes even the Z's, like you are all saying very similar things. It's just I can't hear it because you're saying it in a way that doesn't relate to me, and they're saying it in a way that doesn't relate to them, right?
So true.
And the oftentimes so where we didn't start as well, like defining terms. So the way that I define productivity is any let's say thought, action, or behavior that allows you to create or enhance your product or service. So you notice the word create is in there. So oftentimes, like, and I think there's some books out there now around creative and productivity. Because again, it's like creativity is like in the space, is in that rest space, which is why we need sleep, right? And again, there's books about this rest is resistance, right? To then be like, this is why we need to shut our brains down so that we can be refreshed, right? Which is also the point of vacation, or let's say recreation, right?
Let's take
Like,
a moment on this very important topic. Where the
yes,
currently sleep deprived humans, uh, w- uh, sleep is very productive, very, very productive. We have an
yes,
obsession, right, with working so many hours that people end up not getting enough sleep.
correct.
My life radically changed, radically changed. My ability to be good at work radically changed. My ability to get stuff done radically changed when I started going to bed at like 8 p.m. I thought of myself as a night owl. And I got in trouble at work in my very first job. And one of the changes I made is I started going to bed extremely early. And over time, it turns out, now it might have taken like a decade, but over time, I learned that I am not a night owl. I'm a morning person.
Good.
Now that I work for myself and left for the last like 10 years,
Yeah.
I, I like my best day, I get up ahead of my alarm,
Yeah.
uh, generally between 5:30 and 6.
Okay.
Uh, and I have now I don't have kids. It does get trickier with kids. Of course,
100%.
of
Yeah.
course,
I don't have kids
a
either.
thousand
Yeah.
percent exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And I don't have
recognize
children.
that,
So
right?
yeah,
Yes,
100%. Very different.
yes.
Yes.
But the principle stands. I wake up, I leisurely have my coffee while being productive in things that I really enjoy. Nowadays, that is magic. For a long time, that was insurance designations, right?
Yes.
That's how I did all my designations for 3 years. It's all I did, right?
Yeah.
Every morning. Uh, it turns out that I was a morning person. I know not everybody is. My girlfriend's not, for sure, and her family's not. Okay. Also, I learned by allowing myself to sleep, by going to bed early and allowing myself to sleep, I learned that I need 7 hours. On 7 hours, I can
Perfect.
do 7 hours, and 7 hours, I naturally wake up and I have a great day.
Nice.
I can survive on 6.
Yep.
Uh, I can get through the day on 5, but it's not good.
Is that good?
And at an insurance or magic conference or whatever, as an extreme extrovert, I get charged up by people. I can do a few days of 4 hours a night,
Yeah.
uh, and get through on caffeine and social interaction,
Yes.
and then sleep for 2 days afterwards.
On vibes.
Right?
Yes.
Exactly. But I am doing it very consciously to maximize the
Yes.
conference time. Okay.
Yeah.
And it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. My sister-in-law requires 9 hours.
Mhm.
My girlfriend Renee is like an 8.5, 8 to 8
Yeah.
and a half. In fact, Julie might need more than 9.
Yeah.
The point is, you have to figure out what you need.
I'm loving what you're saying right
And
now.
this is like there's science to this, right? Like the
Yeah.
science is very,
100%.
very clear that you're
Yes.
if you are a white collar employee and or if you work with your brain, not your hands, right? Like I have my entire life, my
Yes.
entire working life. And I'm assuming 99% of my listeners are
Yes.
white collar, right? If you are a brain worker, the science is very, very clear. Go search it. I won't even link it for you. You go search
No,
it. You'll find it.
it's out
It is
there.
it is
Yeah.
very, very clear. Like this is
Yeah.
not a debate in the same in the world of
We're
neuroscience.
not debating sleep. We're not
Yeah,
debating
no,
sleep,
no.
Tony. We're not going to debate sleep.
Neuroscience, like go choose a book about it, right? Or a couple
Perfect.
articles, right?
Yes.
Neuroscience is very, very clear that you are not as productive if you don't get enough sleep. So
100%.
get your sleep. It is important for productivity. Arrange your life so you can get your sleep.
And what I loved about what you just said is that it can shift and change and it's not stagnant. Like it's kind of like, oh, to your point, to be like, oh, you were traveling this weekend, you're doing this. Like, okay, I can function this way, but it's going to look a little different. But it's like, ideally for you, you were saying you need at least like 7 hours. I maybe similar to like like your sister-in-law or your girlfriend, to where it's like I need about 9 hours. So sometimes it's not about like when I go to sleep, it's just more of like, okay, I want to achieve at least 8 hours of sleep,
Mhm.
no matter when I go to bed. So just to be like, I have to be mindful of my schedule in the way that all of us have to be. But it's like, ideally, what is the ideal? But then it's like, okay, what are some other factors? And what has been interesting over these pandemic times was like being able to figure that out. Or like you were talking about like sleeping without really waking up to your alarm. To be like, I had trained myself to a certain point in time to be able to wake up without an alarm, right? And not even to have like a phone in the room. So it's just like there's a lot of ways we can train our bodies to do a lot of different things, right? Our bodies are miraculous vessels and help us get around. But it's also to be like, oh, it can shift and change. It doesn't need to be a stagnant or a rigid thing to just be like, it has to look like this all the time. And what I've found for myself, the more sleep that I get, is to be like, oh, isn't it interesting when I wake up to be like, I don't need sort of that jolt of coffee or let's say that caffeine hit because I got enough rest in the evening. So again, like we start to look at again, all of these things play in together. And I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a scientist, but again, to be like, again, in terms of what we're eating, what we're craving, like all, resting, like all of these play a role in how we function throughout the day. And it does become very interesting. So like as a nerd geek myself, like I will read the documentary, I will read all the things, I will watch all the documentaries, I will, be educated and educate myself on it. But just in terms of what I've found for myself is I need ideally like 9 hours of sleep each. I think last night I got about 8, which is fine. I can function. And but at the same time, it's like, oh, it's also the reason that after each of my client sessions, I, take breaks. I take like a 5 minute break. I work with a therapist, my own coach. I also work with a spiritual advisor. My spiritual advisor has given me like, cleansing things to do in between sessions so that I'm not taking other energy into the new space that I'm in. So again, everyone is getting as clean as possible energy or ties, and however you want to, however we want to get into that or what people believe. This is what works for me. So again, how do I come in as clear as possible to every session that I'm in? And then for many folks also who work with me, know that I, tend to end my days around 3 o'clock each day. Yes, there are exceptions, and I'm very mindful about those exceptions. For the most part, I am done at 3 o'clock each day. What I do between 3 and 4, oftentimes like not right at 3, but between 3 and 4, is I will go for a walk. And most people know it's like I'm like walking or whatever. Like they either know not to disturb me, or if I call them, they're just like, oh yeah, you're walking. Like obviously you're outside right now. Like, obviously you're outside right now. But it's like, here are the things that I can build in. And I had, even when I worked in corporate environments, had a similar, a little bit, different structure, but at the same time to just be like, oh, here's where I'm taking like a natural break to just go like walk out of the office or go get, go to lunch or go outside. Like it just looked different, right? So again, it doesn't like if we're holding on to a rigid form of thinking, like a fixed form of thinking, right? The fixed mindset that it has to look this way every single day. It's like, well, that may not actually work for everyone. And oftentimes, to even this point of like sleep or when we work best, as a solopreneur, as a, small business owner now, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I can choose a little bit differently than in a corporate setting where it's like, oh, 9 to 5, but this is, a different argument for, flex time to be like, when do people work best, right? One of my favorite movies, 9 to 5, to where it's like, well, they found that it's like some people work best 9 to 5, some people work best 10 to whatever. And it's kind of like, oh, isn't it interesting? And you've been talking about Colombia. And I'm kind of like, I may need to move out of country because it's like sometimes, like, even the morning meetings, like, I would love to just be in a plaza somewhere in Italy, like sipping on a coffee and like taking an earlier meeting. And I've done that at times when I've traveled to just be like, oh, wait, like maybe I just move here. And then like times in the States become much more ideal.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, like I tend to be more of the nightlife or like afternoon. And for me at different times, I find my best like moments 10 p.m. to midnight. And that's not everyone, right?
Absolutely. Figuring that out is important. It can take you a while. It
Yeah.
took me a long time. But I now that I work for myself and I can set my own schedule, I work 9 a.m. to about 3 p.m. Okay.
Yep.
And I wake up at like 5 or 6. And I
Yep.
don't have kids to get ready. Like there are several hours of the morning
Yes.
that are reserved for me.
Yes.
And it's amazing. Amazing.
Yes.
Okay. And then between 9 and 3, I'm working. And now working for me often means podcast recordings, which is amazing. So it doesn't feel like work. But yes, so why do I work nine to 3? No, no, number one, it allows me significant amount of time in the morning. I could sleep late if I wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Like the Japanese School of Magic and Mystery, their weekly meeting, which is amazing. It's at 7 p.m. Las Vegas time on Zoom. That is 10 p.m. my time. I almost never make it. They do get recorded, but it's better if you do them in person. Okay.
Yes.
If I do join the meeting with a class, which I pay a subscription to, if I do join, I might make the choice the next day to wake up later, right?
Yes.
And I would not miss a meeting. Okay, number
Right.
two. So I'm almost never coming into my first meeting rushed. No, number two. Um, I learned that my brain does better before 3 p.m. So
Yes.
at 3 and 4 p.m., the only thing that I allow on my calendar, unless it's an emergency, is podcast recordings.
Yep.
Because for me, those require less brain power than
Yep.
work, right?
Yes.
Uh, and then I very rarely have any meeting post that. If I have a meeting post that, it's magic related or it is like a chat with a friend who I have a hard time actually having. Like my new bestie, Richard Lord. I took his shirt off. I'm so sorry I took the shirt off because I would have shown it otherwise. But magician Richard Lord
Love it.
uh lives in Vegas and is a night owl because he's a full-time magician
He works in Vegas.
and he lives in Vegas. So basically, we text most mornings, and it's like 6 a.m. for me. It's 3 a.m. for him, and he's in the middle of his day.
Yeah. Right.
And he wakes up at around 1 p.m. Vegas time, which is
Yes.
4 p.m. Eastern time, at
Yes.
which time I am finishing work.
You're literally like,
So
yes.
so we text a lot, but to have a full conversation, we have to schedule a Zoom chat.
It's like you have to literally like space and time have to like work together. Like
Because it's like he lives in Europe, right? Or
100%. And
work.
to that end, there was a friend of mine who lived in Spain at the time, to where we did a similar thing to be like, oh, I would be getting ready to go to bed. They'd be getting ready to start their day. And we would just do like a quick, like 10-minute chat to like catch up. But it's like same thing. But it's also to be like even in the US, there are we do have flux time, like we do have flex time. Like not everyone works 9 to 5. But it's like
Uh-huh.
if that is your norm and if that's where you're coming from, it's kind of like, well then yeah, sure, I guess I get that you may not understand that other people work at different points in time. Like one of my closest friends who's a nurse, I'm like, okay, I want to get on your schedule to where it's like you work 3 days, like she works Friday to Sunday, gets all her hours in, but she's working from like I don't know what like the night shift or whatever, like 8 to something in the morning. So she's like doing 12-hour shifts, like 3 12-hour shifts in a row. And then she's like free the rest of the week. And I'm kind of like, okay, like I need to try your business model. Like I'm just kind of like, I want to try to get all of my work done in 3 days and figure that out. And to a certain extent, because I do also work a 4-day work week, but for for different reasons. But it's kind of like, okay, great, we can, you know, if you have the capacity, and I get that this is going to be different for folks in corporate spaces, but the main thing in that is, again, how am I using my time to the best of my ability in an intentional way, right? So again, to minimize the burnout or to, to ask, to be able to empower them to ask the questions of like, hey, when does this need to get done? Like do I need to be the person getting all of the things done, right? And to be able to like to push back to be like if other projects come in to be like, well, is this project more important? Like, is project A more important than project B, or is B
Uh-huh.
more important than A? So okay, if I'm gonna stop doing work on project A and do stuff on project B, that's okay, right? But to be able to ask those questions, because oftentimes what happens, and I know that this, happened to me at different points in time in my work history, is that it's like, oh, because the work is just getting put, assigned to you, that it's then like, oh, wait, I have to do all these things. And it's kind of like, no, like, let's, again, going back to that planning piece of things, let's look at all the projects. So if you have 4 projects in front of you, okay, great. Which one is the priority? Okay, great. I'm going to work on that one. And then I'll work on the next one of priority, right? But how to be able to convey that to, again, let's say maybe your boss who may have, more power
You hire
in
Stacey
situations.
for coaching to help you with that conversation.
Yes, exactly. Please call me because it's like, again, how do you negotiate that relationship? And again, these are all skills that I had to learn, even in a more so in a corporate environment, because I was like, there, project management, I was like, I'm working with like, 19 different people, or even coming from campaigning. It's like, no, like this is like, again, the work can pile up. It's like, it's just a matter of like, how do we clear the pile, right? And in the most effective and efficient way. And then coming back to that human piece, I'm not a robot. I'm a human. So again, for me at my human capacity, here's what I can do, right? And you know, does that serve? And how to have that conversation, right? So
There,
yes,
there
please
are
come with.
several things, and I have not been taking notes. I've just been having the
I
conversation. There are several things I wanted to add this, and I'll forget some of them. I'll wake up at 3 a.m. tomorrow. Go like, okay. Oh, you know what? I could record them and just add them to the podcast. Right? So, listeners, if there's a piece where Stacey's image is not there and I'm wearing a different shirt and maybe I'm shaved, uh, it is because I added an extra comment later. Okay. So she did not have a chance to reply to it. Okay. So, our school system in the Western world, at the very least, God knows the other side of the world. I've traveled, I've never looked into it. Uh, our school system in the US for sure, and the one that I went through in Costa Rica also, uh, is a descendant of the British school system, which was designed to create factory workers.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So it was designed to teach you what is the 3 R's: arithmetic, reading, arithmetic. I can never keep them straight.
Yeah.
But
Reading,
basically,
reading. Yeah.
the system is designed to create people who can follow instructions,
Yep.
behave, and do. I want to do this movement, but I've never worked a blue collar job, so I don't know what that looks like, right? In
Yeah.
reality,
Like a
right?
factory. Yeah.
But who are good cogs for the factory, basically,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
The problem is, if you are listening to this podcast, that is not the world that you live in. That is not the world that you work in. You are a brain worker. You're a white collar worker. In white collar land, regardless of how, even if you're in the call center, believe me, I started there. Okay. Even if you're in the call center, the skills needed to succeed are very different from the ones that school taught you.
100%.
That's right, and it's that simple. And by the way, the word AI has not been mentioned, which is a pleasure for me because since I interview so many tech founders, all we talk about anymore is AI. But as the AI revolution continues to gain speed, the skill set that is valuable is going to be very different. Creativity will be a big thing. Human
Yep.
connection will be a big thing.
Yes.
Uh, not being a cog in the machine,
100%.
right? And cogs in the machine are much easier to downsize. Cogs in the machine have a much harder time finding a good place after they get downsized.
Yes.
Um, and leaders, industry leaders, I'm going to say insurance industry leaders because this is an insurance podcast, but industry leaders, um, I doubt you're listening this late on the show because normally, like my assumption is that the executive listens to the beginning and then the nerds listen to the rest and the younger crowd listens to the rest. Okay, but leaders in the industry, we are currently in the midst, and this is me speaking, not Stacey. Stacey can disagree. Uh, we are in the midst of an RTO fight, a return to office fight that every insurance carrier, every insurance broker, every TPA, and any agency with more than 3 or 4 employees is going to lose. I would bet my 401k on that. It'll take a little bit. It'll take 3 to 5 years. And the majority of the leadership, you know this. Intuitively, you know this. You just can't say it out loud or maybe can't accept it to yourself. In our industry, no company will win the RTO fight because we don't like to think of it's really funny to me as a foreigner. In the US, we think of everything as a market. Freaking healthcare, we think of as a market. Okay. Makes no sense to me or to the rest of the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything is a market except for white collar labor. Because white collar people, college educated white collar people, think of themselves as management, not labor. Right. But, and for a long time, had lifetime employment. They don't anymore. Right. But we sometimes behave like we do. And the labor market for insurance talent, I guarantee, will continue to be an employees market until I die. And I'm 42 and I hope to live to 103 because we are quite simply not investing the way we should, the way we need to in risk management programs, right? Until we have a line of kids who are 13 years old and are starting to think about college and are like, I am so excited to go study risk management and insurance. And we have enough schools. Until we have as many risk management programs as there are accounting programs out there, that's when you know the problem has been solved. We're nowhere near that. There's roughly 70 risk management programs. There's like 2,500 accounting programs, right? We are nowhere near. Okay.
Absolutely. Well,
So
and what you're
basically, go ahead, go ahead. Yes,
yeah, what you're speaking into, like I love this, and I know that you and I could like geek out on this like all day.
absolutely.
But it's like again, and we do have those folks, right? Like that's the Z's. Those are the Z's coming into the market right now, like that exact age range.
And by the way, they're going, you guys do what?
What? Exactly. So this is again coming from again fresh perspective, right? Each generation has that fresh perspective. And whether or not it's listened to or not, it's kind of like here's the disservice, right? Like again, what used to work is no longer serving us, right? And
Yes,
it's like
yes.
it's no longer serving. So again, how do we bridge that gap, right? So again, this is like the space that I play in all day. So again, it's like, okay, I get to have fun because I am coming from, my political science, psychology, change management like perspective to be like, this is my sandbox. Like, please bring it on. Like the more mess you have, please. I am here for you. I am here to deal with messy like all day, every day. And it brings me like a lot of joy. And then just from that only child perspective, because again, I knew the things that I didn't like doing as a kid to be like, why are you trying to bring me back into the fold? Like at recess, I am fine playing over here by myself. What? Like, who is this? Like, how is this serving me? How is this serving you? And to be like, you're the teacher to my from my perspective, even, what are we like age of in kindergarten to be like, you're exerting energy that doesn't need to be here. Like just literally be like, I am fine playing by myself. I get that this is supposed to be a place of like socialization. I will socialize when I feel like it, right? And so maybe my knee jerk in terms of like all the things that I've studied and continue to study because I consider myself, a lifelong learner, but it's like, okay, like my actual education and sort of like bring in my personal life history is just kind of like, oh, wait, like, no, this, like, how do we tinker with this, right? Like, how do we maybe break it and then put it back together? But it's also just to be like, wait a minute, these pieces may not fit together, or you make a kaleidoscope, or you make like a whole new design, right? Or like so that so for me, like end of day, it's like, yeah, bring on your mess, bring on the messy. I will, we will come up with a solution that fits you. So going back to that stylized or custom to be like, yes, most companies and most industries are dealing with some form of time management issue or dealing with some form of leadership issue or dealing with some form of burnout issue, but it doesn't mean that it's all exactly the same. So again, going back to that diversity and even let's say more equity piece of things, so the DEI of it all, right? Like again, these letters have words that mean something, right? So in terms of the equity of it all, is to be like, okay, well, how would your system, how would your situation change if you made this one shift, right? So like as a team, if you made one shift to just be like, hey, ask this additional question here, or just to be like, is like just a simple question of like, is project A more important than project B? Yes or no? Great. I will go work on project A. And then when I complete project A, I will work on project B, right? Like that, just right there, just in terms of the over function. You're like, oh my God, I have so much stuff on on my plate. It's kind of like, no, like just that simple question. Or like if you're having a meeting, right? Does this need to be a meeting? Because trust me, I am a person who is like, we're not meeting just to meet about the meeting. No, we're not doing that. Please stop. Like I had many of those in the 90s, did not like it. But just to be like, does it need to be a meeting, right? Could this just be an email? Which is like, you have a question to ask. Ask the question in an email. Do not call a whole meeting. If you have a meeting, set like what are the intentions for this meeting? Like what is it that we're looking to solve? Like in this meeting, and then evaluate yourself at the end of the meeting. Did you solve that problem? No? Okay, great. No, we're not putting anything in the parking lot. We're not putting like, again, I sit on a couple different boards and I think you sit on boards as well. To be like in the olden days to where it's just like, how did we get off like 2 hours and like we haven't accomplished anything and this meeting is now going into like hour three? No, do not do that. Nuh-uh. So doesn't need to be a meeting. Does it, can it just be an email? If the meeting is set, does it need to be an hour? No. Could it be 30 minutes? Could it even be 15 minutes? There's a lot you can accomplish in 15 minutes if you really are intentional and set your mind to it. Like you can do it. But it also doesn't mean because you made a 15-minute meeting that you now need to schedule like more meetings in that space because it's not a half hour or an hour. It's like, no, you can actually, again, take that time to breathe. Take that time to like go get a cup of coffee. Take that time to like look at the rest of your day and be like, what is actually, where do I need to prioritize, right? Like, how do I do this? All the things to be like, to a certain degree, there's only so much time in a day, right? There's only 24 hours in a day. And in terms of that time being awake, like there's only so much time during that time. How do you want to spend that time? Right, is what I eventually am looking at to be like, how do you want to spend that time? And then, we work towards, because sometimes it can be a disconnect to just be like, well, I'm supposed, like again, doing air quotes, supposed to spend so much time at work. Okay, great. Well, even there, how do you want to spend that time? Do you want to spend that time feeling like you're just going from meeting to meeting and like not getting anything accomplished? No, right? I think most people would say no.
Correct. Correct.
And like, so just how to shift that. So that's where, when I'm working with folks, whether individually or as a group, and certainly when I'm working with people as a group, I'm still working with them individually. Like to be like, what is your specific thing that you're up against, right? As you then come back to the team, and then to be like, oh, when we come back to our team sessions, how do we then sort of get all of those conversations into the mix? But it's like nobody wants to like I would have, okay, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to be stressed and burnt out like each day,
No,
right?
no,
Because that
no,
can
nobody
still
does.
that can still happen as a solopreneur. And you brought up, even jokingly that we haven't talked about AI, but like we haven't because it's like you and I both have automated things. We both have automated calendars. This is how I got on your schedule today. I also have my own automated calendar. I have other things that are automated to make my like here's where I'm using, let's say, AI to make my life easier, right? Which is how we use, like in my opinion, how we use AI. So it's not going to take over. And trust me,
That is what every technologist I chatted, both on recording and after recording, that is what they all say.
yeah. How is this serving you? Is what I'm doing, whether thoughts, behaviors, or actions, how is this serving me? And that's the space that I, you know, am playing in. End of day, right? And then also to a certain degree, dealing with fear, right? So again, we were talking about generations. So at every level, or different generations, it's like, oh, there is a fear. So with sometimes with boomers, it's just like, well, if it isn't about my work, then it's kind of like, well, who am I, right?
There's so much more of a generation, so much more. All right, Stacey, this has been fantastic.
Oh my God, we didn't get to my game. Oh my God.
Oh yes, yes, you have like 4 minutes.
Okay, we have 4 minutes. Okay, great. So Tony, we're gonna play a game,
Perfect.
which let's see if you've been following along in sort of like our conversation up to now in terms of like my coaching and what I do and my style.
Ah,
But it will be multiple choice.
okay,
So no wrong answers, just not quite the right answer.
okay.
Okay. All right. So first question. So again, multiple choice. So boundaries are fill in the blank. A, something to negotiate, B, optional in leadership, or C, a strategy, not a side note,
A
which is really close.
C
So close.
could be,
It's
not B.
it's not B.
Yeah, C. So it was C.
It is C.
Okay,
Well,
perfect.
but at the same time, something to negotiate because again, like how are we again working and playing well together? So you have to maybe negotiate so that it becomes more of a strategy,
Okay, but
not a
the
side
biggest
note.
thing is it's a strategy.
Yeah, it's a strategy. Yeah, exactly. I love that. All right, we've also talked about this. So the second question, rest is fill in the blank. A, earned, B, a weakness, or C, required maintenance.
Okay, thank you for the gimme. So that's a T. Uh,
Yeah. Say more about that because I know we both talked about that, but yeah, just in terms of the required maintenance to be like how we function optimally, like, again, ideal state and other states, and knowing that times where we may have to shift that, but for the most part, it's like it's required maintenance. Yeah, you would agree?
yeah, 1,000%.
1,000%. I love that you're
And
like, I love the
whoever
gimme.
disagrees with that one, seek help. Read a book, read a scientific article, please.
Rest as resistance. All right. So next question. Fill in the blank. A strong leader always A, has the most answers. B, sacrifices first. C, delegates with strategy. Or D, responds to every email by 8 a.m.
It's B or C. I'm gonna go for B.
B, sacrifices first.
Let's go for C. I'm gonna go for C.
Was it my inflection in the like
Yes.
sacrifices first?
Yes.
So yes, a strong leader is going to delegate with strategy or delegates with strategy. So again, just I don't have to do I don't have to do everything. I have a team, let me lead them, let me mentor. Like again, it's just how do I what is for me, what is for someone else to do, right? So
Hmm.
really going back to that strategy piece as well. All right, last question. Dun dun dun. All right. Over functioning looks like fill in the blank. A, being helpful. B, being in control. C, being everyone's plan B.
C, I'm gonna go for A.
So over functioning looks like, so in this case, you could pick any of these answers
Uh-huh.
because over functioning looks like all of these things.
Oh, okay, perfect. Perfect.
Being helpful, being in control, being everyone's plan B. So this is a quick way to burn yourself out. So again, if you're being over helpful, so that sometimes that like looks like people pleasing,
I
saying yes to
okay.
everything.
Um, Burnout in this country is an epidemic.
Yes.
And I'm very lucky that I have never been affected by it, but I have seen it many times. I chat with many people, and I have seen it very, very, very close to home.
Yes.
Um, and it is not good for anybody. It is not good for the worker. It's not good for the company. It's not good for your career. It's not good for your family. It is not good for the economy. It is not good for anybody. Do not be a martyr. Take care of yourself before you burn out.
Yep.
It is a lose situation.
Yep.
And the recovery period needed after burnout is a lot longer, maybe exponentially longer. I don't know the scientific research on this, or I
Yep.
haven't read it at least. But I bet you, if I had to guess, wild guess, it's 3 times as long, maybe more.
Yep.
The recovery
Well,
period necessary after burnout,
yep.
rather than taking periodic recovery. Uh,
Absolutely. And we're all in some form of burnout, right? So even if we look at these, last years of pandemic, we really haven't cycled through the effects that it's had on our minds, our spirits, our bodies. Like we're all
yeah, we're
in
just starting to see the
to
effect.
like
Yeah.
see the effects, right?
Um.
And then it's like, oh, you think of that like
So
in terms of economy, like it just all the things are
did you get through all the
one.
questions?
What's that?
Did you get through all the questions you had?
I did. I
Ooh,
did.
okay. We do have a hard stop for the listeners. Links are below to Stacey's website and LinkedIn. Stacey, I have never said this 700 episodes. I've never said this on the podcast. You have an open invitation to come on whenever you want for whatever topic you want. Just grab time on the calendar if you want to record. Because yeah, this was fantastic.
Yes.
I'm gonna get an annoyed message from Brett McKenzie asking me why she's never had that offer. Brett, you have it too. I just never told her.
We could come on
Uh,
together. We could come on
exactly,
together.
but
No,
yes, the two of you,
this has been
whenever you want,
a joy and a
just
pleasure.
yes.
We'll
I
have
gotta
more
go.
questions next time. We'll just do all questions.
But yes, whenever you have an open invitation, whenever you want. Have a great
I
one.
appreciate that. Oh my God, so much joy. Thank you. It was such a pleasure to be
Thank
here.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.